I'm Jamie from BadTimesToReload.com, and we're taking a look at Sleeping Dogs for the 360, PS3, and PC. Okay, stop me if you've heard this one before. This is an open-world action game that's centered around the world of crime. The gameplay revolves around driving, fighting, shooting, and doing deals with generally bad people. Sound familiar? Yeah, it probably does. But out of the many games that sound like that description, is Sleeping Dogs worth your time? The answer isn't a straight yes or no. It's not as black and white as that. It's more of a probably. It takes the familiar surroundings of a GTA-style game and adds some very interesting elements to spice it up a bit. The story follows hardened criminal Wei Shen as he returns from America back to his home in Hong Kong, only to join up again with his criminal buddies in their gang. The twist here is that Wei Shen also happens to be an undercover cop working with the Hong Kong police to bring down the gangs in the city. As the story develops, the lines between good and bad begin to blur, and Wei finds it harder to tell who the bad guys really are at times, and often has to make some hard decisions one way or the other.
I can't simply just cut him loose. I mean, you're asking me to release a criminal with known connections to the Triad, and not only is it against protocol...
For God's sake, Tang, he's one of us.
What?
Jesus, Pendrew, let me get the door. There are few badges outside who didn't hear you.
It's all right, Wei. We can trust.
Anyone who has played a GTA or a Saints Row game in recent years will be instantly familiar with how Sleeping Dogs is going to play. Most players will know what to expect straight away, but there are a few things that set Sleeping Dogs apart from the crowd. Most prominently is the fact that this game takes away the focus from gunplay and places it more on hand-to-hand combat. Wei has a background in martial arts and puts it to good use here with a combat system that allows the player to string together counters and combos to defeat enemies. The combat itself plays similarly to games like Batman Arkham Asylum, where it's possible to defeat everyone in a room in one long combo if you do it right, which leads to some incredibly satisfying fights throughout the game. Another big feature of the hand-to-hand combat is the environmental kills. These will evoke memories of the 2005 Punisher game for anyone who's played that one, since it gives the player the opportunity to slam them into things like car doors or crush them under car engines. Oh, and there's the table saw. That too. The actual gunplay in the game only comes up a handful of times through the course of the story, and when it does, it plays like any other cover-based shooter a la Gears of War, where players must hide behind cover, occasionally popping out to kill bad guys. The gunplay, honestly, is kind of bland in general, and thankfully does not appear all that often throughout the game. The driving in Sleeping Dogs is fast, loose, and arcade-styled. While GTA 4 may have elected for a more realistic car handling system and physics, the team behind Sleeping Dogs went with more of a fun and high-octane approach. This leads to many car chases that reach insane speeds while players weave in and out of traffic to escape cops or enemies. It's also got the same ramming mechanic as Ubisoft's Vin Diesel game, The Wheelman, from a few years ago, where players can shunt the car left or right to run other cars off the road, although somehow it seems less ridiculous and more useful in this game. Sorry, Vin. Also found here are the typical collectibles littered throughout the in-game world map. These include lockboxes full of money, which are usually guarded by bad guys, a series of statues that were stolen from your former mentor, health shrines that will improve Wei's overall health, and many others.
It seems as though they're all finding their way back to me now.
None of these collectibles, as well as the weird in-game dating sequences, are all that essential, but they do provide a nice enough reason to explore the city.
Picking up hardware for Orange Lotus.
Sleeping Dogs has some good driving mechanics, some superb hand-to-hand combat, some high-octane chases both on foot and in vehicles, and some bland but generally inoffensive gunplay. The story is compelling enough to keep players coming back, and the game is a decent length, clocking in around 8 to 14 hours. All of these things are great things for a video game to have. The problem here is that Sleeping Dogs follows the formula a bit too much. Missions will feature all or one of the following: driving, fighting, shooting, and a chase sequence. Usually 3 of those 4 will make it into each mission, but not necessarily in that order. This means the player is essentially doing the same thing in every mission of the game, and that can get repetitive. Once you're done with the story, there's very little replay value, and there's no multiplayer at all, so it's easy to imagine that most players will forget about Sleeping Dogs once they finish it. This is a prime example of a game having a great set of individual parts that come together into one machine that works very well for what it is, but struggles to overcome the repetitive nature of these sections of gameplay. It is exactly the sum of its parts, and nothing more. It's fun, it's action-packed, and it's compelling, but once it's over, you probably won't come back to it. I'm Jamie from badtimestoreload.com. All of these things on screen are worth your time, and I'll see you next time.